Maybe you know. Science meets the questions you never thought to ask. In June 2000, a 34-year-old woman in Los Angeles sat at her keyboard and typed an email to a famous memory scientist. "Ever since I was 11," she wrote, "I have had this unbelievable ability to recall my past." She could give him the weather on any Tuesday since 1980. What she ate, who called her, every argument, every embarrassment, every quiet afternoon. The scientist read it twice, then picked up the phone. Her name was Jill Price. She was a problem science could not explain. Memory is supposed to fade. That's the deal. You meet someone at a party in 2014, exchange numbers, never call. 6 months later, their face is a blur. By next year, gone. Your brain is doing its job. We forget around 50% of new information within an hour and 70% within a day. The German psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus mapped this curve in 1885 by memorizing nonsense syllables and watching them slip away. Forgetting is not a flaw. It's the architecture of being alive. If you remembered every grocery list, every red light, every sneeze, you drown in noise. The brain ruthlessly throws things away so you can think. Sleep, in fact, is partly editing, neurons pruning connections that didn't matter. Now, imagine the pruning never happened. Imagine that for every day you've lived since middle school, you can replay the entire thing. The conversations, the shoes you wore, what was on the radio at 7:42 a.m., not as a fuzzy impression, as a movie, paused, rewound, watched again. That is not science fiction. There are roughly 60 people on Earth who live this way. And the first one science ever met was sitting in a bedroom in Los Angeles, drowning. The scientist Jill emailed was James McGaugh. He ran the Center for the Neurobiology of Learning and Memory at the University of California, Irvine. He was 70 at the time and had spent his career studying how emotion burns memories into us. He had seen every kind of memory claim. Most fell apart in the lab. Jill came in. McGaugh and his colleagues Elizabeth Parker and Larry Cahill ran her through a battery of tests. They asked her, what happened on August 16th, 1977? She said, that's the day Elvis died. I was at home with my mother. I remember the news on the kitchen TV. They asked random dates pulled from almanacs. Easter Sunday, 1980. The day Princess Diana died. A Tuesday in March 1986. She answered instantly with the day of the week, the weather, what she had been doing. They cross-checked her diaries. She had kept them obsessively since age 10. She matched, over and over. In 2006, Parker, Cahill, and McGaugh published the first paper in the journal Neuroscience. They called Jill AJ to protect her privacy. They needed a word for what she had. They invented one. Hyperthymesia, from the Greek for excessive remembering. The brain doesn't store memory like a hard drive. It rebuilds it every time, like a campfire being relit from embers. Different regions handle different jobs. The hippocampus, a curled structure deep in the temporal lobe, is the librarian. It stamps memories with time and place. The amygdala next to it tags emotional weight. The prefrontal cortex retrieves and reassembles. When McGaugh's team scanned Jill's brain, something jumped out. Several regions were physically larger than average. The temporal lobe, the caudate nucleus, a small structure deep in the brain, typically associated with habit. In a 2012 follow-up study at UC Irvine, neuroscientist Aurora Laporte scanned 11 HSCM subjects. Their brains looked different in 9 specific regions. The caudate, in particular, was almost 20% larger. Why is the caudate involved? It's the brain's habit builder. It runs the patterns you do without thinking, driving home, brushing your teeth. In HSCM brains, it appears to be running autobiographical recall as a kind of unstoppable habit. Every day gets filed, indexed, stored, without their consent. Many HSCM subjects also score high on measures of obsessive-compulsive traits. Their minds organize compulsively. They can't help it. The recall isn't a trick. It's a tick. And here's what nobody expects. Jill Price did not consider this a gift. She called it a burden. She told 60 Minutes in 2008 that her mind ran like a split-screen TV, present life on one side, an endless stream of past days on the other, playing whether she wanted them or not. When something reminds her of a bad day in 1989, She doesn't just remember it. She feels it. The shame, the grief, her mother's voice, the exact pitch of an argument with her boyfriend on a Wednesday in October, as fresh as if it happened 5 minutes ago. In a normal brain, time softens. The first time someone breaks your heart at 16, the pain is unbearable. By 30, it's a story you tell at parties. The brain gradually strips emotion off old memories. It's a kind of mercy. For people with hyperthymesia, that mercy never arrives. Every breakup is still raw. Every dead relative is freshly dead. Every regret hasn't aged a day. Jill once said, "Most people have called what I have a gift, but I call it a burden. I run my entire life through my head every day, and it drives me crazy." In 2012, Aurora Laporte and the neuroscientist Craig Stark recruited 11 people who appeared to have HSM. They put them through 10 hours of testing. The team picked dates at random: a Thursday in 1996, a Saturday in 2003, a Monday last spring. They asked subjects to name the public events that occurred. Then they verified each answer against newspaper archives. The HSM group scored 87% accuracy. Control subjects, ordinary memory, scored around 8%. The HSM group could also recall what they personally did on those dates. When their relatives or diaries were checked, they were almost always right. One subject was the actress Marilu Henner, known for the show Taxi. She had revealed her ability on 60 Minutes in 2010, sitting across from reporter Leslie Stahl. Stahl asked her, October 17, 1976. Henner answered without pause. A Sunday. I was rehearsing in New York. Dinner with my brother. Another subject, Bob Petrella, could tell you the score of every USC football game he watched since 1972. Brad Williams, a Wisconsin radio host, became known as the human Google. Each had a brain that, on scan, showed the same pattern. Enlarged caudate, enlarged temporal lobes. The biology was real, and it was repeatable. And just when you think you understand it, it slips. Hyperthymesia is not a photographic memory. It is not superintelligence. The HSCM subjects forget where they parked. They lose their keys. They flunk multiplication tables. Some score below average on standard memory tests for word lists or shapes. In one experiment, Laporte gave HSCM subjects a list of 50 random words and asked them to recall it 20 minutes later. They scored the same as everyone else. Show them a face they saw for 30 seconds yesterday. Average. Read them a phone number. Average. Their semantic memory, working memory, face recognition, all ordinary. The only thing exceptional is autobiographical recall of their own life. Days lived, things felt, the personal timeline. That distinction matters because it tells us memory is not one system. It's many. The brain runs separate filing cabinets for facts, faces, motor skills, and the story of you. In HSAM, only one cabinet is broken. The cabinet labeled me. So they're not human encyclopedias. They're more like people with a very specific and very unusual relationship to one drawer in the brain's file room. A drawer that never closes. A drawer they can't stop opening, even when they desperately want to. Right now, in your skull, an editing room is running. Last Tuesday is being deleted. The argument you had 3 years ago is being softened. The face of the cashier you saw this morning is being thrown out. By tomorrow, around half of today's details will be gone. By next month, most of this year will live in fragments. You probably consider that a flaw. We say things like, I have a terrible memory. We download apps to fight forgetting. We take photos of every meal. We think the goal is to remember more. But hyperthymesia tells a different story. The people who can't forget describe lives that feel claustrophobic, crowded, loud. They struggle with depression at higher rates than the general population. Jill Price has spoken openly about how the inability to move past trauma left her, in her own words, a prisoner. Forgetting may be one of the most important things your brain does for you. It's how grief eventually softens. It's how embarrassment fades. It's how you walk into a room you cried in and don't immediately cry again. Your bad memory isn't broken. It might be the only reason you're free. Jill Price is now in her late 50s. She has lived 2 decades in the spotlight of memory research. The burden has not lifted. Every day she lived as a child, she still lives. Every day she lost someone, she still loses them. The email she wrote in June 2000, "I have this unbelievable ability to recall my past," was not a boast. It was a cry for help. 60 people on this planet share her condition. They are not superheroes. They're not cursed. They are an experiment the universe is running on what happens when the deal breaks, when forgetting stops. The rest of us walk around with brains that ruthlessly delete. We complain about it. We try to fix it. But maybe when you forget the name of someone you met last week, the right response isn't frustration. Maybe it's gratitude. If a brain that remembers too much fascinates you, wait until you meet a brain that remembers nothing at all. Next time, the story of a man who lived for 55 years without ever forming a single new memory. Every face he met was a stranger. Every meal was his first. Every morning, he woke up at age 27. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching. If this sparked a question, drop in the comments. It might be our next video. We'll see you next time.